Hello and welcome back. This is the concluding video for the 2021 6A, 5A All-Region Etudes for Oboe in the state of Texas. This video covers the last 8 measures of etude number 38 in the key of B major. It's a very difficult etude. It's got a lot of notes, and the key is not a great key for the oboe. We're going to be looking at the concluding section, which fortunately has a lot of similarities to the first 8 measures. The concluding 8 measures are firmly in the key of B major, and the first part is very similar to the opening 4 measures. Now, before we get into the details of the last section of the composition, let's review the rhythms. I'm going to leave out the trill. And with the trill left out, the rhythms are a 1, 3, 1, 3, and 2, and 3, and a 4, a 1, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and triplet 2, and 4, and 1, 2. It's a very straight ahead kind of a march ending. So first, let's take a look at the first 4 measures, the first phrase of this section. How is it similar to the beginning? Well, the first half of it is exactly the same. The same pickup, the same half notes, the same high note, the same descending arpeggio. Those are similar to the beginning. Now let's take a look at how these 4 measures are different. The trill at the beginning was written like a triplet. Here it's written as a duplet. So where you had triplet with the first note trilled, now we have 3 and a. The next measure is also slightly different. At the beginning, there was a double dotted quarter note that slurred downward. Now we have just a regular dotted quarter note that slurred downward. Now let's take a look at the markings on the music. Most of them will be very similar to the beginning. And the first thing to do would be to look back to measures 0 through 4 and copy most of the markings as they would appear on measures 32 through 36. My suggested markings are taken from measures 0 through 4 from the part 1 video. Now let's take a look at measure 35, beat 3, the beat with the trill. The basic rhythm is 3 and a 4. Let's first play it without the trill. Now, at a fast tempo, you're only going to be able to get 1 trill in. So the trill has to occur on beat 3. On the and of beat 3 will be the duplets D sharp and E. Triple da da. So always think of it as not grace notes before the beat, but dot 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 dot, triple dot dot. Here's without the trill. With the trill. Admittedly, that's going to sound very similar to the trill you have in measure 3, isn't it? Now let's take a look at the rhythm in measure 36. Measure 4 had a double dotted quarter note descending. This has just a single dotted quarter note, 1 and 3. It really doesn't matter whether you play the D sharp on the left side or the right side, whatever you're more comfortable with. Now, to complete the phrase, let's add a slight decrescendo to create an arch in the phrase. You've got a little crescendo during the half notes, especially the A sharp, to set up the high note of E natural. Then we'll balance the phrase with a slight decrescendo at the end. I've really overdone it this time, but many times in practice we'll do a little bit more than necessary, thinking that on the spur of the moment in the performance, you won't do it quite as much as in the practice. So overall, again, this first 4 measures of this section, there's a little crescendo at the beginning, and then it's balanced with a little decrescendo at the end. So in measure 36, we have a breath mark, but do we really need to take a big breath? If we take a large breath, it interrupts the flow of the phrase only after 4 measures. I urge you, don't really take a big breath there. Instead, put a small space, in Texas we use the term lift, So it's just going to be a space that's very short, not really time for a breath. That measure with no breath will sound like this. And you notice there's just a little bit of a lift in there. I'll play it one more time for you. So a little bit of space, really no time for a breath there. And this is the conclusion. You can catch your breath at the very end. Now let's take a look at measures 36 through 38, the B natural scale review. B, C sharp, D sharp on the left side, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B natural. And you can see, even in my music, I've marked a few things to help me remember. So before you practice these measures, go back and play the B scale once, just to get the vocabulary under your fingers. Now let's take a look at one of the problems inherent in this composition that shows up in measure 36, the left D sharp. You really can't do without it. I will see some students occasionally try to hop their fingers from C sharp to D sharp on the right side. Please, don't try it. You'll have to use both little fingers. If you find one of your friends or you find yourself hopping the finger, you've got to break that habit. It can't be slurred cleanly by hopping the finger. Now let's take a look at measure 37. There's a whole lot of notes jumping around. It's a kind of broken scale, but the skeleton of the scale is the B major scale. Again, go back and play the scale. Those are the most important notes in the scale. The listener is going to hear the complete scale in those measures. Always play the B major scale before going to work on details in this section. Now for one of the awkward notes in this composition, measure 38. It's got an X by it, which is the symbol for a double sharp. So when we get to measure 38, we've just finished the B scale. Our very next note is G natural. F double sharp is G natural. I've even known players to use a bottle of whiteout and white out the F double sharp and use a very fine tipped pen to draw a G natural in there. Why F double sharp? Well, by drawing the F double sharp, when the G sharp appears a few notes later, there's not a need for a second accidental. But it is a very awkward manuscript, isn't it? Now in measure 38, we have the descending B major scale. So you've played earlier the ascending B major scale. Also, be sure to practice the descending. You will have to use left D sharp. Again, don't hop your finger or try to slide your finger. You cannot play it in time. And for good measure, we have a partially descending scale again at measure 39, and one last time with the low D sharp. You can remember on professional instruments, you can hold the D sharp key down, going back and forth to C sharp to save you from the timing of switching little fingers, like this. It saves for a lot of agony about timing of switching little fingers. If your instrument has this ability, you can test it like so. Hold down the D sharp key and see if C sharp will play. If it plays immediately, your D sharp and C sharp mechanisms are in very good shape. So what is the goal of this section? We're headed toward a conclusion, affirming the tonic note of B. And if you look at measures 39 and 40, the descending scale in arpeggio heads toward the low B. That's our goal with volume. And Ferling could have easily just stopped on that note, as he did back at measure number 16. So the last note is not the goal, it's the low B that's the goal. A reminder, always practice slowly and work on your tone and make sure you have vibrato present in your sound at all times. Speed should come later after you're used to playing with a comfortable and relaxed sound and can play all of the notes comfortably, slurred, and then with adding the articulations later. By the time you get to this video, the last part, you've been practicing for quite a while now. As you get closer to the all-region event, which for most of you will be early December, save time for run-throughs, going completely through the etude over and over. At least the last 2 weeks should be reserved for run-throughs of all of your etudes. I've stressed in every video the importance of journaling. Keep on with your journal. Finish it with the day of the all-region audition so you can look back with pride and accomplishment on the work that you put in on these etudes. And you'll have something also to pass on to younger players to encourage them to work toward the all-region auditions as well. I just want to tell all of you, I know these etudes are difficult and there's a lot of competition in Texas. Always practice a little bit every day with the eye on the prize, the audition. Make sure that you always keep with the long tones at first, scale patterns, and then go to your etude. The best of luck to all of you in the preparation for the all-region auditions.